Hello and welcome to Football League World TV's EFL London Show. I am Billy Mulley. And today I'm joined by Marcus Ally, who I'm sure will have a lot to say when we come on to Charlton a little bit later on in this show. First of all, Marcus, how are you doing today?
Yeah, very well, thank you. A man down on the London show, but hopefully my efforts can make up for that loss. Yeah, I'm really excited today. Some good news at 10:05 this morning, but looking forward to getting into the show.
Yeah, as you say, they're a man down, but that won't stop us as we deliver some more EFL news around the London clubs. As I said, today is the London show, so we'll be looking around the nation's capital, looking at the 7 clubs we continue to look at. First of all, we're going to go into a little bit about Fulham. So yesterday it was a 2-0 win against Cardiff City. Fulham had to wait a little bit longer than they would have hoped for, but Tom Cairney struck in the 57th minute and then Mitrovic confirmed the win, sealed the deal, scoring his 13th of the season. So first of all, Marcus, I'll come to you about Cairney because he was substituted on nearly a year out with injury. So how beneficial is it for Fulham first to have him back in the side and back in contention?
It's huge. Obviously, he'll always be a Fulham legend for scoring a winner in that playoff final win against Aston Villa a few years ago. But it adds a really nice blend, I think, to their midfield. He's still got that long-range shooting threat, which, of course, we saw with that thunderbolt against Cardiff. But it's the variety, I think, that he adds to the midfield, which is really important. Obviously, Jean-Michel Seri has not been present in Fulham's promotion pushes from the Championship in years gone by. But Cairney could be a player, I think, that could come in and complement his skill set really well. It's a dream start really for him coming off the bench and netting the opener in a match where Cardiff gave as good as they got. Really, I'm not sure many people expected them to stand as firmly as they did. So yeah, Cairney's a huge boost for Fulham in terms of the player himself. I think he does fit nicely into Marco Silva's 4-2-3-1. Obviously, the player that he replaced at half-time in Harrison Reed, I think is a little similar to Seri in terms of whether you need both of them on the pitch at the same time, particularly against the lesser sides in the Championship, which some of us are expecting Fulham to really blow away, particularly at home this season. So I think Cairney just adds a little bit of nice variety into that midfield. Obviously, you've got Josh Onomah that can also sit in there. So it's always great to have competition for places. Fulham have got a bit of an embarrassment of riches at this level, but Cairney is definitely a very unique player within that who could definitely contribute in the next few months.
Certainly good to see Cairney back after a long time in the sort of injured, but at the same time, it's been a chance for other players to sort of have their chance in that starting lineup, and some players have performed very well. A little bit ahead of them is Carvalho, who was obviously brought on from the bench as well yesterday. So what do you make of Carvalho returning, and what do you make of his chances of going on to continue securing first team football at Fulham?
Well, there's going to be a bit of friction as long as the contract situation drags out. I think come January, it'll be interesting to see what kind of negotiations take place. Obviously, Fulham are desperate to keep him. They'll get some compensation if they do lose him as he's under 23, but he's such a player that's crucial to them continuing their push at the top of the table. While he was in the side at the start of the season, particularly the month of August, Fulham were irresistible and looking like a team that no other side in the Championship could really live with. The month that followed was pretty poor. They've struggled particularly away from home, but I think Carvalho coming back into the side, they could be back to their best. Mitrovic is looking really clinical at the moment. He's a cheat code at a Championship level. If Carvalho and Mitrovic can rekindle that link up that we saw at the start of the season, I'm sure that the Cottagers are going to be fine. And the pressure on Marco Silva to produce a top 2 finish will probably get less and less.
If there are any Fulham fans out there and want to have their say on the game during the week or want to look ahead to the weekend, then please get in touch. Any score predictions, any comments in general will do. Also want to quickly ask you about the midfield options that Fulham do have. And I think we've spoken a lot about them being all very good options to have. So is there a chance that they might have too many midfield options, and that could sort of create an atmosphere where certain players are not playing and they're obviously feeling like they should be selected? Does that cause any sort of friction as the season progresses, or is that healthy competition for you?
I think it's down to the manager, and there is definitely a balance to strike for Marco Silva. A big squad's great, but if you can't keep all the players happy, then it is going to have a negative impact. I think competition for places is probably at its peak when you've got just 2 players vying for each spot in the team. Whenever there's more than that, it's going to be really difficult to keep the morale up. So that's, of course, down to Marco Silva to make sure he keeps that pushing and everyone at the club pushing in the right direction. But I don't envy his task at all, having so many quality players that have even performed at high levels before. It's going to be tricky. We've got the FA Cup coming in the next few months. Aside from that, there isn't another competition where Silva can give players on the fringes a lot of game time. So I can see how the squad size could have a negative impact, yes. But yeah, it's got to be a positive to create that atmosphere on the training ground that every player's desperate to get a start.
We'll remain in West London for our next club. QPR during the week won 1-0 at home to Blackburn Rovers, with Ilias Chair's goal proving to be the difference in the 83rd minute. But one of the key things, Marcus, was Albert Adamar and Andre Dazelle, 2 players that have seemingly been in the fringes of things this season, coming in and both putting in decent performances. So first question I'll ask you with QPR is, can you see those 2 players becoming integral first teamers, or do you think that they still have to do more to cement a place in the side?
I think they're going to have to do a lot more. I think Albert Adoma in particular, playing at right wing back, I'm not sure. I think that was a role that Warburton put him in out of necessity more than actually wanting to do it. Moses Adebayo out injured. Osman Kakai wasn't picked as usually the second choice in that role for some reason, but it's good for Adoma to get a chance. He's a player with great experience at championship level. Mainly as a winger, we see a lot of players as they get past sort of around 30 drop back in some positions. So maybe he can adapt to the role, but it will be a learning on the job process, which I think if QPR have aspirations to finish in the top 6, they might not have time for. Having said that, he should be a good head in the dressing room, having competed at the top of the championship quite a lot in his career. Andre Dazelle, obviously much younger than Adoma, so I think he's going to be a player that's a bit more of a project. There's good competition for places in central midfield as well, of course, at the Kind Prince Foundation Stadium. So I think Dazelle will be a more important figure than Adoma, but I can't see him being a regular starter. I think he'll be more starting in the midweek matches when the fixtures are coming quite quickly, but he'll still have a significant role to play in that.
Certainly good problems for Mark Warburton to have when players on the fringes have come in and done an excellent job. Next, we'll go on to the defensive side of things, because it was a clean sheet. QPR haven't kept too many clean sheets this season, but it was a resolute display from the back line. And I think Rob Dickie has to be the name that we come to, because it was another very, very strong display from him, showing his defensive capabilities. So how important do you think he will be in what remains of this season, and how important is it that he remains an Ars player throughout the entirety of the 21-22 campaign?
He's really crucial, Rob Dickie. I can't see QPR being the same team without him. He just fits into this system that Mark Warburton's playing so perfectly. The way he brings the ball out of defence, he even got an assist in this match, and even just building attacks, getting the ball off the keeper. And yeah, just his on-the-ball ability for a centre-back has got to be one of the best in the division. For me, he's definitely a player we'll be seeing in the Premier League in the next few seasons. It's just how long Mark Warburton can convince him to stay at QPR. I'd argue almost in the final third, and the way he can make that first pass into the final third into a midfielder's feet is as important going forward as he is a rock at the back. Obviously, he's a good leader on the pitch as well. QPR have struggled to keep clean sheets in recent seasons, but since Rob Dickie's come in, that's slowed up a bit. They've been able to be a bit more tight at the back. So yeah, Dickie is a huge player. Warburton's system is getting the best out of him. He deserves a lot of credit for that. And yeah, he might be earning the board quite a significant transfer fee. Maybe not in January, but if not, then beyond. Dickie's definitely a player I see in the Premier League in the future, and he's crucial to QPR's top 6 push.
Next, we'll go and take a look in South East London. Yes, we'll talk about Millwall now because it was an excellent response against the Blades. 2-1 victory coming courtesy of Jake Cooper's late goal. So Marcus, first of all, how important is bouncing back like that after the defeat against Luton that was very, very dismal for most Millwall fans, as we've seen?
Yeah, it shows a lot of character. I think any murmurs in the background about Gary Rowett in the hot seat will be thrown back straight to the back of supporters' minds, because that is an awesome result against Sheffield United. Jake Cooper, I'm not sure he's going to score from outside the box every week, but what a goal it was to win it. That's got to be one of the strikes of his career. Of course, Jed Wallace opening the scoring as well. Not sure whether that was a fluke or not. I'm probably on the side that it was. But it's a great result in isolation as Sheffield United, a newly relegated side, have been on a decent run in the last few months. Something is starting to click under Slavisa Jokanovic. So to go there and pick up a point would have been a great result. That would have shown the bounce back ability that they needed, but to pick up all three is outstanding. And it firmly has the lines looking up, I think, on the top six. It's very open, the race for the playoff places at the moment. I think if Millwall can continue to be usually as solid at the back as we've seen them in previous seasons, continue to make the difference in the final third. I'm not sure they can rely on Cooper to do it all the time, but they're definitely going to give themselves a platform to build a playoff push from this, and that completely justifies Rowett's place in the job.
And we've spoken before about a reliance on Jed Wallace. Obviously, it was his goal that was Millwall's opener. But do you see there being any other sort of talismanic figures within that squad that could sort of take that role on, say, if Wallace is not involved or if he does move on?
It's going to be really tricky, to be honest. I think most of the leaders and the key players for Millwall do lie in that back line. Apart from Jed Wallace, we haven't really seen Shea Ojo hit the ground running at the Den. Of course, he's a player with the ability to be very dangerous in the final third at second tier level, but he hasn't quite shown it yet. Scott Malone is left wing back, is one of their most important creative players. Has played in the Premier League and has come back to Millwall for his second spell, similar to George Saville, of course, bringing back the old guard. I'd probably pin your hopes on Scott Malone if they weren't to bring in a significant replacement for Jed Wallace should he leave the club in January. For me, I think he'll stay for the end of the season, see out his contract, and then probably move on to the Premier League if there is that option there. But Scott Malone I'd probably put as Wallace's deputy in the creative department. That there aren't a lot of parties to choose from in terms of that.
Well, we'll let Marcus sink his teeth as we come to our next club. So as we found out earlier, Charlton parted ways with Adkins, and it was a decision that I think, Marcus, you've said a lot that should have perhaps happened earlier. So do you agree that the timing was right in the end? Do you think that he got to a point where he couldn't have actually asked for any more time? And in terms of what you see Charlton going for next, do you see a young and progressive manager coming in, or do you see someone a little bit more experienced coming in to perhaps stop the rot?
Well, I think Adkins can definitely have no complaints. Yeah, he was on borrowed time for quite a while and wasn't able to produce the results, or probably more importantly, I'd say performances, to show that there was going to be a turn in the tide coming at some point. Losing at home to Accrington Stanley being the final nail in the coffin, but I think that the damage was done earlier on in the season. They're clearly not getting the best out of the players. In terms of the next appointment, I think Johnny Jackson is very likely to get the job. If he makes a good start, to be honest, what would be perceived as a good start is only getting Charlton out of the relegation zone, which with that squad should not be too difficult to achieve. If he can get us out of the bottom four, then I think Jackson will definitely get the job at least till the end of the season, maybe even longer. I'm not sure. That there is a big feeling from the fan base to get in a manager that's had a connection with the club as a player or just previously to coming in. And Jackson has that. He was a hugely popular figure with the fans, was a great leader on the pitch, and was assistant manager when Charlton were last promoted from League One under Lee Bowyer. So he's bided his time. He's been a great servant to the club, and I think Johnny Jackson will probably be the guy who gets it unless the poor form continues, which isn't even worth thinking about, to be honest.
Well, we've got a comment here from Tom that says it's Johnny Jackson for him as well. He knows the squad inside out. So very much agreeing with what you said there. But taking it a step back, you said you don't really want to think about it if it goes wrong with Johnny Jackson. But I'm going to put it to you. If it does go wrong and you're in search of a manager straight away, I'm going to put you on the spot with any suggestions that you think should come in. Because you mentioned there about the club connection. Is there anyone in particular you've been sort of eyeing up as an option?
Number one choice would be Michael Flynn, recently left Newport. Produced an incredible escape from relegation to the National League with Newport, and then ended up having them coming so close to getting promotion to League One on two separate occasions. Had a small budget in League Two, completely overperformed with Newport in recent years. He's definitely a younger manager that's going to be managing in League One soon, I'd imagine, maybe even the second tier. Apart from Michael Flynn, I wouldn't mind Neil Harris, despite the Millwall connections. Flynn maybe offers a bit more of an aesthetically pleasing style of play, but Harris has been there and done it at League One level, and even in the Championship, got Millwall pushing for the playoffs, had Cardiff in the playoffs in 2019-20. So I don't think any Charlton fans can complain should Neil Harris get the job, provided the results and the managerial CV he's put together in recent years.
Well, we'll go down, staying into the League One. We'll be talking about Afc Wimbledon. So, Marcus, it was a clean sheet against Lincoln, a bit of a collector's item with 1-0 win. Aaron Presley scoring in the 5th minute to earn victory for the Dons. And then we also saw a spirited comeback against Sheffield Wednesday. So are we in a position where we can say the Dons are back and looking good and perhaps going to challenge the top end of the division? Or is that a little bit premature after just two games?
I think the way their results have been trending ever since the start of the season really will continue. It's a young side. There's a lot of new players in the summer. Mark Robinson is clearly trying to change the whole outlook, the philosophy of the club, and that is going to take time. So I can see this inconsistency being consistent, to be honest. I think a top half finish would be a realistic, very good achievement for AFC Wimbledon this season. They've had so many seasons where they're precariously looking over their shoulders in League One. So just getting to, I don't know, maybe February and not having to worry about a relegation battle would definitely be a success. Yeah, as I said, I think Aaron Presley, another one of those younger players coming in, that's why they're so inconsistent. There's players without much experience at third tier level, so they're going to be up and down as it goes on. You say it was a clean sheet, just 1-0 at Lincoln, but it was still a very open game. There could have been loads more goals in that. So yeah, it's going to be great viewing. I'm sure there'll be great value for neutrals in League One this season. I can't see them pushing on to maybe flirt with the playoffs, but I think around mid-table, if they can get a top half finish, that'll definitely constitute success.
Do you think Robinson will be looking to address the defensive situation in January? Obviously, a clean sheet yesterday. Some might think, why are we talking about this? But they have been very open. Or do you think that's just part and parcel how they're going to play this season? And do you think that's going to be what they continue with playing? Yeah,
the latter. I think it is an open style. He wants them to play a certain way. And having centre-backs that are decent on the ball does lie into that as well. So I think they're judged on that as much as maybe how resolute they are at defending. So yeah, the latter, I think, is part and parcel of the system and the philosophy and the what Mark Robinson wants to put in front of the Wimbledon fan base this season.
We're going to dip a little bit into League Two with the two clubs that we find there. So we'll be talking about Leyton Orient to start with, and I think I've been saying for a long time about how impressed I've been with them, but I think it's about time that I stop singing their praises so much, because it has been a dodgy spell of form. I keep saying that they'll bounce back from it, but it's got to a point now, Marcus, with 4 draws and a loss in their last 5 games. Can you sort of see them being automatic promotion contenders this season? Or do you think it's a little bit premature in that sense?
It's a tough one. I think Kenny Jackett will produce better results as it goes on at Leyton Orient. It's just whether they fall away too much to leave themselves too much to do in terms of an automatic promotion push. There's plenty of positives to take from a home draw against Forest Green Rovers. I think they've been flying this season. To limit them to just the one goal is impressive, and I think Orient definitely have the leaders to be consistent. I mean, they have been consistent in terms of drawing games lately, but to turn the corner, I definitely think they can. Jacket's been there and done it. I'm not worried about them slipping away from a playoff race. Automatic promotion, I feel it's a bit too early to say. They started the season a little bit hot, I think. I don't think it was sustainable to think Harry Smith's going to be scoring at the way he has if you look at his goal tallies in his career before this season. So I think Orient will turn the corner. I think there's definitely reasons for optimism after the draw against Forest Green, but talks of an automatic promotion push. They could be there come the end of the season, but I can't see it very soon.
Now we'll head off to Sutton. Well, Sutton's excellent run came to an end against Swindon at the weekend. Swindon, who have been in brilliant away form. Do you think, Marcus, that the form that we've seen in recent times with Sutton, do you think that can be sustained? As we've spoken a lot about them perhaps being dark horses in the division, but do you think that this defeat could spark a little bit of inconsistency, or do you think they have the credentials to bounce back and actually go on and enjoy a really, really good season?
I do. I think they're fine. I would comfortably say that Sutton, I think, are minimum top half finishers this season in League Two. I think they'll be fine for the playoffs in and around it come the end of the season. They've got a great side. They've carried on that momentum from last season. The fans are just going to be riding this wave and enjoying the ride. Matt Gray is going from strength to strength as manager. They've got two great wingers in Ajiboye and Enzio Boldewine that they're great to watch. Great on the road. I forgive them for losing to Swindon, to be honest. I think Swindon have been outstanding at the start of the season. Ben Garner's got them playing some great stuff and really sort of on a new ownership bounce, maybe, after there was a lot of concerns in the summer about what was going to happen. So, yeah, I think Sutton are fine. I'm not reading too much into the loss against Swindon. And I think, yeah, if they can continue the way they're playing, there's no doubt in my mind they'll finish in the playoffs this season.
They've certainly got all the tools to at least contend with a playoff place come the end of the season. Currently edged out in goal difference, but do have a game in hand. Marcus will come next for your score predictions. So perhaps not the most logical, but we'll start with Sunday. It's a big game in the Championship. Nottingham Forest versus Fulham. Is this sort of the worst time, do you think, to be playing Nottingham Forest? Obviously on the back of a dramatic win. Really good form since Steve Cooper has taken over. So will Fulham be fearing playing Forest, or do Fulham have that too much firepower for anybody in this division?
I don't think Fulham should be fearing anyone in this league, but Forest are the form side in the division. And yeah, you can't underestimate how much confidence and just how much belief will come from how much resilience they show to be battling into injury time at Ashton Gate in midweek. Get some confidence into Lyle Taylor, who's been in and out of the team this season. So I think Forest will fancy their chances. However, I just think Fulham are too strong. They're going to be able to transition their strong home form onto their travels at some point. They haven't won since mid-September on the road it was at Birmingham. So Michael Silva will be looking to get that monkey off their back on Sunday, as you say. It's going to be tough. I don't think many defences in the Championship can handle Alexander Mitrovic at the moment. So I'm going to go with 2-0 Fulham. I just think they've got too much quality. And Forest, despite the amazing start, I don't think they're in the same league.
Well, yeah, you've just called the same sort of scoreline as Michael here, who says Fulham beating Forest 2-0. We'll go over to QPR, and they are playing against Peterborough at the Western Home Stadium. Do you think that Peterborough's win during the week sort of boosts their survival hopes? And do you think that they can take that momentum into a game against a side as strong as QPR?
Yeah, it was an enormous win at Hull City, a real relegation 6-pointer early on. Huge for Darren Ferguson as well. The pressure was building around his place in the dugout. They've also been stronger at home. 2 of their 3 away wins in the Championship this season have come at home. We all remember that really resounding 3-0 one against Birmingham, which started this bad run for Lee Bowyer's men. So I think they can capitalise on this. QPR haven't won an away game since August, which I think has gone under the radar a little bit, despite QPR competing in and around the playoff places. I think Peterborough desperately needed that result in midweek at Hull, because it was starting to look very bleak with Johnson Clark-Harris suspended and certain players injured as well. So I think they can take belief into it. QPR have a great side. Lyndon Dykes is in great form. Ilias Chair is a future Premier League player, in my opinion. But I think Peterborough can make it a bit hostile. I think that they're going to have to continue their, well, it hasn't been great, but it's been better than their away form. I think their home form is key if they're going to battle against relegation this season. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I think Peterborough can put in another impressive performance, but I think QPR just got too much quality to not get anything out of the game.
And our last game in the Championship, Millwall versus Stoke. What are you thinking in terms of that game, Marcus? Because what we've seen with Millwall, obviously been difficult to beat, perhaps lacking consistent creativity. But they face a Stoke side that perhaps not been as good at home this season. So what are you thinking when it comes to this game?
I know Stoke are coming in off back-to-back losses, but against Sheffield United and Bournemouth, I think we can forgive those, especially with Sheffield United, 2 late goals, sort of a real kick in the teeth at Bramall Lane. That one was for Michael O'Neill. I think that will only make them even more determined for this. Tyrese Campbell was back coming off the bench in midweek. I think Stoke are the better team here. Millwall, I know it's a great result at Sheffield United, but it's a cross that's gone in from Jed Wallace and it's a screamer from your centre-back. I'm not sure how repeatable that is. I'm going to go 1-0 Stoke, back to winning ways.
That's a fair call. And we'll take it down to League One. And it's a big, big game for your boys. Sunderland away. What are you thinking?
It's really not a nice start for Johnny Jackson. Thinking about what I was going to say for the prediction, if Nigel was still in the job, I was thinking of going 4-0 Sunderland or something like that. But I'm expecting a much improved performance. Expecting the players to be bang at it. I'm just expecting the motivation levels and the belief. I feel like the players will play like a weight's been lifted off their shoulders. It was not a nice atmosphere under Nigel Adkins in the last month or so. So I'm expecting an improved performance, but probably still the same outcome. Sunderland are flying, battered Crew 4-0 in midweek. I'm going to go for 2-1 Sunderland. I think Charlton can put up an admirable fight and something to build on, but 2-1 to the Black Cats for me.
And the games do not get any easier for Wimbledon, who face Wigan at home. And I think, as I say, it's just a very difficult time in terms of the competitiveness of the division and subsequently the teams that are in the division. So what are you thinking with Wimbledon and Wigan? And can the Dons secure a second clean sheet in succession?
Definitely not for me. I think Wigan, especially on their travels, they've won their last 4 away league games. The only one they lost was at Sunderland on the opening day. Probably the most consistent team in the league. Obviously, losing in midweek to MK Dons, that was on home soil. I think there'll be a lot of goals in this one. Mark Robinson will try and fight fire with fire, but Wigan are just too good for me. They'll be wanting to bounce back. Liam Richardson is showing himself as a really outstanding manager there, stepping up from being a number 2 a few years ago, of course. So I'm going for 3-1 to the Latics. That's my score prediction.
And then Leyton Orient in League 2 travel to my local club in Stevenage. And what are you expecting for that one?
I think Orient can turn the tide. I like Stevenage. They had a really impressive second half of last season, almost finished in the top half, but something's not quite clicking at the moment for Alex Ravel and his men. So I think Leyton Orient can go there. They're going to have to come out a bit more. I think low scoring has been a theme of this barren run for Orient. So Jacket is going to have to try something different, maybe sacrifice a bit of that defensive solidity to try and offer a little bit more in the final third. So I'm going for 2-1 Orient. Stevenage are not looking great at the moment, and I think Orient can capitalise on that.
Well, yes, it will be certainly a good game. See if Orient can return to winning ways at the Lamex. And finally, Marcus will look at Rochdale versus Sutton. Perhaps good opponents for Sutton to play, given that Rochdale haven't won in their last 6 games.
Yeah, I think this could be one of the best matches, particularly in League Two. At the weekend, there's 2 sides that like to keep the ball on the deck, like to play attacking football. I think Robbie Stockdale's got Rochdale playing some good stuff despite some inconsistent results at the start of the season. So yeah, this is going to be an exciting one. I'm going for 2-2. I think Sutton a great viewing at the moment. I think they'll continue that, but Rochdale at home, I think, can put in a positive performance amidst what's been a disappointing run.
Some very decent scores there. And well, that is all we have time for today. A big thank you to you, Marcus, for joining in this reduced episode with just the 2 of us. If you've liked what you've seen today, then feel free to subscribe to Football League World TV on YouTube. Keep watching us because we have some more shows for you to conclude the week tomorrow. We have our betting show with George Harvey, Chris Gallagher and Ben Wignall before we finish the week with our weekend preview. And that is where Marcus will be, and he'll be joining Alfie Burns and Sam Rourke. But until then, goodbye.